like walk us through like what's the next step and like what needs to happen before it becomes like officially law, like official.
Yeah, so what's going to happen is next, they still have until tomorrow at 5 p.m. to count some of the remaining provisional ballots or ballots who signature doesn't match. The signature on the envelope doesn't match the driver's license. So people are still doing that. It's about 15,000 ballots that still remain. Once those get counted, they're going to do a recount, an audit as well, because some of the elections are really close. And then they're going to certify the elections in December. And
What
that's when
day?
I think it's December 12th or the 3rd. I have to look it up, but it will be in the first week of December.
Okay.
So it gets certified. That's when the governor signs. And then Prop 308 will take effect and for the spring semester of next year. So in January
Hold
2023.
up. It's gonna take into effect. What the heck does that mean? Tell us. Break it down.
Yeah. So therefore, if you are a Arizona high school graduate, have lived here at least for 2 years, you are undocumented DACA, you'll be eligible to pay in-state tuition for schooling and eligible for publicly funded scholarships. So there's going to be some scholarships that students are eligible for if they are like sports. A lot of our kiddos do a lot of sports, or you're a club, or you're in band, or like some people who are mothers, or some of them who are different part of different things. So I think that's so important. So you're going to be eligible starting January 2023.
So I'm going to pause there a little bit because we've been getting a lot of questions about who benefits. I think that you broke it down very kind of like how the law was written, right? You have to be here at least 2 years, attended at least 2 years of Arizona high schools, and actually have a graduate from an Arizona high school. That can be a GED, that can be a diploma. But let's go through like more kind of like people scenarios. So for example, I've been getting a question I think that either an email or a text. Now I'm getting a little bit overwhelmed, but it's like the first question is like, I have DACA. I graduated 2 years ago. I haven't been going to college because it's really expensive. I have some classes and I want to go back. Do I qualify for this? So let's think about like what are the potential more common scenarios, and if you can walk us through, Jose, like who qualifies through more like a scenario base of like the type of people that would qualify for this.
Yeah, so this people qualify returning students. So that means if you graduated, as you mentioned, 2 years ago, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, you'll be eligible if you are a DAC recipient, or if you are undocumented, meaning you don't have a immigration status. You'll be eligible for in-state tuition and eligible for scholarships.
And then we just got a question from, I believe it's Dulce. It says, does the student have to be DACA? Do they have to have DACA status?
No, so the way the law was written is student who is undocumented would be eligible for it. So they don't have to have DACA status. They just must have graduated from North Arizona high school and been at least 2 years. The other provision is that you must not hold a non-immigrant visa. There's about 35 plus categories for that. Some of them are like the F1 students, international students that we know of. Other students are people who are here in the U.S. because of media or sports or modeling. Those individuals are the ones that are not eligible.
Actually, we're getting a question. I'm not sure the username is Vina. I hope I'm not bashing the name, but they're saying that they're on an H4 visa. Does that mean that can they get in-state tuition?
I would.
H4
visa. I would have to double check with USC code 1110 to double check. But my understanding, if that's a non-immigrant visa status, which again, like F1, HB 2A, HB 1B, then you would not be eligible.
And the reason why is because when you have those visas, you have to have your residency somewhere outside of the U.S. So the U.S. doesn't become your permanent residency, from my understanding, Jose. And if people do that, they can even lose their visa status, correct?
That is my understanding. That was one of the provisions that we talked with some of the attorneys,
Mm-hmm.
that they wanted to have that implemented because if a this my that's if a student who has an immigrant visa established residency here in Arizona for tuition purposes, therefore they would be ineligible to have that visa status, and they will become undocumented.
Okay, so then we're getting another question. What about if I only went to high school in Arizona for 1 year, but have been in the US for 2 years? Would I qualify? I'm assuming that's the question.
We would have to go with the attorneys, because the way we read it, and it'll be a little bit up to, and this is where we're having a conversations with the university and the colleges about implementation, because the way it's in the law is you must have attended a high school in Arizona for at least 2 years. So what does that mean? Does it mean calendar years? Does it mean school years? Does it mean a year plus 1 or 2 months? So a lot of those questions that we need to make sure that we clarify, to make sure that we follow strictly with the law.
Because currently the implementation guidelines were going to have to be developed by the Arizona Board of Regents, which governs the 3 state public universities, which is ASU, NAU, and U of A. And then also they're going to have to come from community colleges. So if you're in Maricopa County, typically it's going to be one of our 10 Maricopa community colleges. If you are in Pima, or if you are in Yuma, right? There's different colleges around the state. So they're going to be the ones who are going to be asking for the documentation that you're going to have to provide to ensure that you are meeting the requirements and they're abiding to this new law. So again, I know that this is probably not the answer that you want to hear, but patience, it is a virtue, and we're going to have to be a little patient because these guidelines are probably going to start rolling out in January, or hopefully it can be either a little bit before the year. But honestly, as Jose mentioned, elections still need to get certified, so I would say that it takes a little bit time. So you can probably start seeing them as early as January 2023, but that timeline is still a little bit unknown. So the next question, I think I kind of answered, but I do want to ask, is like, when will you be able to see the tuition reflect as in-state? As again, we have to wait for the implementation guidelines, but we are hearing from some of the leaders at the higher education institutions that it can be started to be reflected as early of the spring semester. I think that they're trying to figure out the technicality, like if it's going to be reflected in day one, or if it takes a little bit of time for policies to be implemented. Anything else that you want to add to that, Jose, before I go into the next question? Because we're having a lot of questions. We love the engagement. We'll get to the question.
We're going to be advocating for it to be reflected at the beginning of the spring semester. Those of us who are old enough, when Prop 300 was passed in 2007, it was a little bit chaotic because people enrolled for the spring semester, and it was in-state tuition. And then in the universities, I think they kept it for a while, and then they switched it back up. And then the community colleges, it took a little bit longer, and they basically kept it for the spring semester to be in state, and then they charge out of state. And then it was not a consistency. It was a little bit very chaotic. So we want to avoid that, because I just remember from my sister being in college and how like that eventually she was like, she went from having a full load of classes to taking 2 classes, and then for me, how it impacted me. So it's also important for us to know that these systems are in place that we hope to get. We need to make sure to advocate to make sure they get implemented well, because also a lot of the counselors, advisors, all those coaches need to be trained to make sure they give that accurate information to individuals. As we mentioned, like we talked about Maricopa County, the big college district, but we also have community colleges up in Prescott, in Flagstaff, in Yuma County, in Eloy, in Florence, and other places that are much smaller, and sometimes they might not have all the information because they're not as big staff.
And also, if you are a student who wants to help us with implementation, if you are a counselor, an educator, and want to be part of one of our trainings and support us in that way of making sure that you get the accurate information with the implementation regulations are rolled out, there is going to be a form for you to sign up. It's an interest form, so then we can email you as soon as we have a training ready to go. So if you want to be part of the training, Diego from our team is going to drop the link in the chat and make sure that you go on it. And I believe that after the live, he's also going to put it in our bio. So make sure that you check that out. Another question that we're having, what if you haven't going to school and paying out-of-state tuition but graduated 10 years ago? So I'll answer that question because I graduated 10 years ago, girl. So I feel you. I can't believe it's been 10 years since I graduated college, actually. High school a little longer. As long as you graduated from an Arizona high school, you are good to go. It doesn't matter if you graduated 10 years ago, 20 years ago, as long as you've graduated in Arizona high school and went to school for at least 2 years of your Arizona schooling and have that graduation diploma, you're going to have to be able to apply. And then you have to meet also the requirements, right? Like that you have been residing here in the state of Arizona for at least 2 years.
Yeah, and I think the next question is similarly. There's a lot of students because we did have this state tuition, and we know that there's private colleges out there that have the opportunity to be more accessible. Right? We know people who study here in Arizona, at their education, and then for college went elsewhere, and now they come back to give back to the state, and then now they want to continue with a master's or a doctorate degree. They would be eligible for in-state tuition because is tied to your high school, your graduation of a high school.
Because the whole purpose of this was to support Arizona Dreamers, right? To support our Arizona high school graduates that regardless of their immigration status, that if you graduated from an Arizona high school, like we want to keep you here. We want you to stay here in our state so we can continue to like make Arizona better. So within that, I think that thank you, Michelle, for supporting us and letting us let other peers know that, yes, we're expecting implementation to start as early of spring semester, so January 2023. And then we have another question from a high school principal from Maryvale. Shout
Go
out
Panthers!
to Maryvale. Would anyone be available to come and talk to our students and families about it? Yes, principal. Please fill out the form. You can also email us at info@alientoac.org. We're probably going to start doing the presentations as early as January. That's why we're doing these Facebook Lives. We're going to be going live. I mean, this is Instagram. We're going to be going live on Facebook and Espanol. So we're going to do it completely in Spanish. In Facebook, in the other platform. And please share this in the meantime with your families and with your students. Send them our way. But again, we want to be a little patient. Implementation we're going to have more information early next year. But right now you can fill out our interest form. So then we can follow up with you, and then we can go and talk to your students and your families. We'll have probably someone from the Aliento team to support us on that way.
Yeah, and as I grew up in Maryville, so I would love to go back and visit the Pride of the West Side, Maryville Panthers.
Yes, let's go. The next question we have, should we wait to enroll until January? What would you say, Jose?
What I always encourage people is to enroll now to get the classes that you want, because some of the classes that you may want may fill out, and then your schedule is going to be in disarray. And then there is a time for you to make changes. And then it's like you're given like 1 or 2 weeks depending on the college university. But within that week, it should be reflected, and we're going to be working hard on our back end to make sure that all the systems get updated. Because I know that how difficult and challenging it can be to register for classes in the last minute, and then you're taking classes like at 7:30 or 7 a.m. or 7 p.m. We want to make sure that students are able to plan a schedule that works for them, especially those students who are returning, who have working a part-time job or full-time outside or have family. So that's what I would encourage you. But again, it would depend on you. But that's what I would suggest.
Definitely. The next question that we have is actually coming from an academic officer for the University of Arizona. Shout out to Tucson and shout out to our friends in the Pima County. So he's saying, for current students, do they need to do anything on their end, or will the tuition eligibility be updated automatically? Great question. Jose, give us the answer.
Okay, so ideally, in an ideal world, everything works out well, right? But we know that things always break down. They wouldn't have to do anything on their end, but we always encourage students specifically because this is going to be a dramatic shift for overall just counselors, academic advisors, but also the systems. We would always encourage people to be on the lookout and advocate and go with them advisors and be like, hey, like this is the new tuition rate. You need to make sure to update it, so then it reflects on them. Normally, it should work out everything fine, but we're in the human world, and some people sometimes make mistakes or things get overlooked or people are really busy. So that's what I always encourage individuals to make sure to advocate and let their advisor know, hey, this is the new law, this is where I qualify, make sure to get updated. Because things fall through the cracks. Like we're all human beings, and systems and technology is run by humans, and we just make mistakes sometimes and we just forget stuff.
And something to add, Jose, for that, you as an academic advisor, your role really matters for students, especially first-gen students like me. College can be so daunting and stressful, so you can be a great bridge builder to ensure that students know who in student services they should be talking to making sure that their tuition is reflected if they meet all the requirements according to this new change of law. But hopefully, more to come at the beginning of the year, as we know that ABOR has been working really hard to ensure that it's a really seamless process and that they are abiding by the current new law, which is Institution for Dreamers. The next question, which is a little heavy but important, Jose, could the Arizona Senate and House fight Prop 308?
They could. So I can get a little bit heady into the politics. The Senate, the
Spark
president.
Notes version, because we need
Yes,
to do this in Spanish too.
yeah, the Senate president is Warren Peterson, who was strongly opposed to this policy. However, there is several Republicans who are in the Senate who can help us block it. And then in the House, the new Speaker Ben Toma, who he has been supportive of the issue itself. But again, he put it against the bill, but he supports the issue. So they could technically happen. We'll be more than ready for that fight if that occurs. But I don't think it will, just because most people support an institution. Most voters who know about the issue voted yes. And I think one of the biggest lessons from this campaign and others is like the importance of education. There's always one or two members who are on the extremes, who is gonna try probably introduce a repeal like last year. Senator Michelle Uguinturita introduced a repeal that didn't go anywhere. If somebody else introduces it, we're gonna be able to. I feel confident that we'll be able to block it.
Okay, so now moving from politics to a little bit more technicality. Buenas tardes, good afternoon. They're asking, can we expect 308 to go into effect in December 5th when the Secretary of State certifies the elections results, or would it have to go into effect later than that? I'm going to take this one, Jose. As I
Yes.
mentioned, the people who are going to be in charge of the implementation is going to be higher education institutions. So they're going to be the ones rolling out the implementation. So we are asking you for a little bit of patience until this just passed yesterday, you all. I know that we're all excited, but I think that the two things that you can do is definitely monitor if you're impacted or if you know students who are impacted, to making sure that they're asking the questions to the higher education institutions. We are collaborating with them, so we're hoping that we will get answers to you sooner than later. And then most likely it would go into effect, as we mentioned a little bit before, on January of 2023, or starting as early as the next spring semester. So we're going to be going into the next couple of questions. With spring enrollment starting in 2022, should we wait to enroll until the college reflects the new tuition rate for us, or should we go about enrolling? I know, Jose, you already answered this, so definitely go back to, once we're done, to the beginning of this live so that you can get that answer. I know Jose is encouraging people to enroll now because you want to get those good classes. You don't want to get the 7:30 a.m. classes or not get the professors that you want. But for more explanation at the beginning of our live on that. We're getting a shout out from the academic advisor from U of A. We're getting the next question. Can you enroll for the spring tuition? Hold on, let me reread it. That's just a little bit Michelle supporting us and giving people some answers as well.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you for the support. You're so fast. And then the other things, I have seen more friends joining in. Diego, thank you so much for dropping the bit.ly/prop308-interest. Sign up so then you can get trained whenever the implementation guidelines are rolled out. That would be for educators, for academic advisors, counselors, principals, anybody who wants us to talk about it, students, because peer-to-peer communication is super crucial to make this happen. And it is also in the bio. Thank you, Diego, for that. We're getting a lot of shout outs. Just to confirm, this applies to all programs, including medical school. Great question. Jose, answer that.
Correct. It applies to grad school as well.
Yay! Get your PhD, get your master's. Aliento
There-
team better get a grad in bio. Get those postgraduate degrees. As long as you meet the requirements, you should be able to go and pursue your dreams. And hopefully, we can have a lot of folks. You do have to be a little bit careful, right? This is about in-state tuition. This is not about licenses. So I know that some of you who are going through the medical pathway, if you're undocumented versus DACA, I know that there can be a difference in terms of getting your license. So that's something that you should be paying attention, because this is related to tuition requirements, not to licenses, which is a different topic that maybe we'll cover in another live. The other question that we're getting is, are state-funded scholarships the only available financial aid? What about state-funded grants? Can you tell us a little bit more, Jose?
Yeah, so both scholarships and grants. Again, those will be eligible because it's state funded. So state funded, yes. Federally funded, again, it has to be settled in the federal Congress. But state funded grants and scholarships, yes.
And then we're getting a question about dual enrollment. That is a little bit of a gray area. It's one of the requirements. It is a high school diploma. So that's a little bit more to come. So definitely send us an email. Diego put it there, info@alientoac.org. We are monitoring it. Just a friendly reminder, this just happened yesterday. So it's going to take a little time for the implementation to roll out. The other question that we're getting is that if there are any other agencies in Avondale, we are statewide, we're actually a nationwide organization. So definitely send us an email. If you have a specific social issues that you're thinking about, if we're not the right person, we'll definitely connect you with the right partner. So then send us an email and let us know what you need.
Yeah, I just want to highlight the dual enrollment and the importance of it. And this right now is a little bit of a gray area. We're going to have to get a lot of clarification. Because in the past, before Prop 300, we were eligible for dual enrollment, but it's not necessarily as clear. So again, these are other like gray areas, and something that we're advocating, and we appreciate those questions.
Yes, and then we're getting a shout out for immigrant Asians. Thank you for representing. We know that this is not a Latinx issue only, so definitely, folks, make sure that you are getting the word out there for like our undocu Asians or docu Black folks. We love you. We care about you. We see you. And as someone who has proud roots from China, from my great grandpa, like I see you, and thank you for being a voice for our community. We're getting a bunch of shout outs. Are we also eligible for financial aid? Jose, can you answer this? And we are getting a lot of questions. I know we have a Spanish Facebook Live to go into in a little bit. So we're going to take about 5 more minutes. And if we don't answer these questions in this live, we're going to probably do a part 2 in the upcoming days.
Yeah, so long as it's state funded. So there's also where, so long as it's state monies or local monies, then yes. But not federal money. Not to FAFSA, not through that federal financial aid, but there are state-funded grants and scholarships and programs that are in place, but also we're trying to advocate to be expanded. So therefore, undocumented and DACA students could be eligible.
Great point, Jose. FAFSA, unfortunately, that's a federal matter. So Prop 308 doesn't encompass this because Prop 308 is really specific to the state of Arizona. So that would have to be undue at the federal level. We've been advocating for years on that. As you know, we don't give up. We don't take a no for an answer. We don't know how long it'll take because we're not lawmakers ourselves. But definitely we're advocates and we're going to be monitoring that. And hopefully that changes soon. There's other couple questions.
We have an amendment that we've been advocating with the state delegation.
Stop saying the T. We got to focus and we got to wrap up in 5 minutes.
All right.
So that's another topic for another day. Yes. So
Sorry, I get us
yes,
in trouble.
there is an
My bad.
email. There is an email that you can reach out to us. It is in this chat, info@alientoac.org. If you have more specific questions or you feel more safe doing them via email, just be patient. We're like a small and mighty team, so just be a little patient with us as we are monitoring a lot of the volume. The other question is, thank you for the hard work, giving us some shout outs. Scholarships. We still have scholarships. Make sure that you go to alientoac.org/scholarships. You were able to see it. Also, if you go to our website and you go to our Prop 308 toolkit, there's frequently asked questions in English and in Espanol, and there's also the link for our scholarships. We already answered the question around scholarships, that it would be anything that is state and locally funded, you should be able to qualify. We already answered that question about scholarships, so thank you so much. We're getting a lot of shout outs and felicidades from California. Good to see you, Andrea. I think that that's a wrap, Jose. I think that we did a good job and tried our best to answer all the questions. If you had more questions, please send us our way. Depending on the volume, we'll probably do part 2 of this. But in the meantime, any closing remarks, Mr. Patiño?
I'm just really happy and grateful for all of the Arizona Borders who supported us and all the people who helped us knock on doors, who talked to the community, who talked to their neighbors and friends, especially those of us who are able to vote because you're too young or you're not a citizen, and all the educators and counselors and mentors who, for years and years, helped mentor us, make sure that we kept that spark, whether we had to leave the state or whether we had to extend our journey. And all that you do, because we wouldn't be here without you all.
And we're so grateful for our students who are always our North Star. Thank you for believing in us and for working alongside us. This is your victory. We were able to remove those barriers because of people like you believe. So big shout out to the niece and happy early birthday. Thank you for all your support. We could have not gotten here without you. For all the educators, for all the students who are not comfortable to sharing about your immigration status, we see you. We're with you and you're not alone. And we gotta go to the Spanish Facebook. So catch us up on Facebook at Aliento en Español. Thank you all. Take care. Sending you big hugs. Bye.
Bye. Take care. Okay. Diego.